Hare Krishna. Today we will be revising chapter number 3 of Jaiv Dharma. The title of this chapter is The Namikta Dharma is to be relinquished. And before we start summarizing it, let's take our blessings from our gurus, Shri Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj Ji, our Diksha Guru, and our Shiksha Guru, Shri Brajnath Prabhuji, and all the Vaishnavas and brothers and sisters who have been attending the Jayabdham class regularly. My Danvat Pranam to them. Please bless me so that I can come up to your expectations and summarize whatever I have learned from you. Hare Krishna. And before we start that, let's understand a little bit about chapter number 2 of Jayabdharm. The title of that chapter was the Nitya Dharma. It was about what we learned about Nitya Dharma, and the understanding was that the unalloyed worshipping Shri Krishna Bhagwan Ji is the Nitya Dharma of the Jeev, and it must be continued. And the title of the chapter number 2 was The Nitya Dharma of the Jeev is pure and eternal. And the learning was that the transcendental love for Krishna is the Nitya Dharma of the Jeev. With that in the background, we start chapter number 3. Chapter number 3 starts with the our Vaishnav Das. Earlier, he was known as Sannyasi Thakur. He was sitting in the place where he was residing, and he could see late in the evening in the 10 o'clock that there was manifestations he was imagining, and he could see with the mercy of his Gurudev the beautiful things that were prevalent in the Mayapur area, and he was enjoying the celestial views of what was coming into his mind. It was around 10 p.m. in the evening, and he saw divine manifestation of the Mayapur. There were towering jewel palaces, temples, and ornamented archways illuminating the Jhanvi River. Harinam Sankirtan was rising from the very far away places. Vaishnavas were playing upon Veena like Narad Muni, and Tandav Nritya of Madhav on one side, and other side was the four-headed Brahma in assembly of all the rishis, and they were reciting Vedic mantras. Beautiful views he could see and realize what was happening, all with the mercy of his Gurudev. And there was Prakriti Devi, goddess of nature, and she was maddened with Gaur Ras. Sannyasi Maharaj remembered his Gurudev for showering mercy in Mayapur in this manner, the secret land of Shri Navdeep Dham. He saw everyone wearing tulsi necklace and tilak on the forehead and letters of Shri Ram stamped on the body. And when he realized all this, he was very much influenced as to what he had seen with the mercy of his Gurudev. He cast away his outer dress of Mayavad and started wearing the sannyasi dress. And the next morning, then all saw him, and they were all very much pleased with his new look. And then he went to his Gurudev, Paramahansa Babaji Maharaj, and he also blessed him. And he was also very happy with his new look and gave him the new name of Vaishnav Das. So Sannyasi Thakur became Vaishnav Das with the blessings of his Gurudev after he was blessed with the Mayapur's celestial views. Now, every sannyasi over there, they started praising him. They started talking good things about him. And he was not feeling very comfortable about it. He remembered the shlok, the famous mantra over there. I will just read out for you. Tirangat abi sunichen taror abi suhasinunna amaniniya maanden kirtaniya sada hari. So Vaishnav Das remembered this shlok mantra, considering oneself to be more insignificant than a blade of grass, being more tolerant than a tree, and free from all desire for personal prestige, and offering all respect to others, one should constantly be absorbed in Hari Kirtan. So Vaishnav Das was not liking the praises which he was getting. So he remembered this mantra. He was very much grounded and he wanted to offer respect to everybody and then do the Hari Kirtan. So that was what he was remembering of. Okay, proceeding further, he then embraced his Gurudev and he got the name of Vaishnav Das, as we have already realized. He realized three essential things. He realized three essential things to uprise from the disease of material existence. The first one was dust feet of the Vaishnavas, the water that washes their feet, and the nectar emanating from their lips. He then adopted Vaishnav principle and became a sannyasi, the fourth stage of the social order. And then the Vaishnavas present over there, they put emphasis on the importance of sadhu sang, of being associated with the devotees. Then only one can progress in bhakti. So this is the takeaway for us, that we shall always remain in the association of sadhus, devotees, and people who are in the line of Shri Krishna bhakti. That will help us in progressing in our bhakti. So this is what the Vaishnavas over there they talked about. On that particular day, when he got the name of Vaishnav Das, there was a gentleman sitting amongst the Vaishnavas over there. He was a rich zamindar, a rich landlord. And somehow or the other, whatever money he had, it did not please him, it did not bring him happiness. He took up Nam Sankirtan. He became singer and he even went to Delhi to learn more about this singing, taking lessons from masters of the in the line of this Sankirtan. But somehow or the other, the Vaishnavas who were present over there, they did not like his way of singing because it was too much classical. But being a Vaishnav, he was singing Nam Sankirtan, he was accepted. Then on that day, he became, and finally he came to Godharma to participate in higher level of Sankirtans. There he heard Vaishnav Das, and he was very much pleased as to what was being discussed over there. And then he put up all his knowledge and guts to ask a question. He was a very good orator also, could speak very well. So he asked the question, and the question what he asked was like this. I'll just read out the question, because the rest of the chapter is a reply to the question which this new gentleman had asked, the new Jamidar, the landlord, had asked. And the question which he asked from all the Vaishnavas present over there was this one. Just a minute. Yes. The question he asked from the assembly of all the Vaishnavas, it was, the Manu Smriti and other Dharma Shastras state that the Brahmana caste is the highest caste. According to these Shastras, the religious rites such as Sandhya Vandana, that is the chanting of the Vedic mantras such as Brahm Gayatri at the dawn, noon, and sunset, these are considered to be the Nitya Karma or the eternal duties of the Brahmanas. If these activities are obligatory, why is Vaishnava behavior opposed to them? I repeat this question. The Manusmriti and the Dharma Shastra state that the Brahmana caste is the highest caste. According to this Shastra, religious rites such as Sandhya Vandana, that is the chanting of the Vedic mantras such as Brahm Gayatri at dawn, noon, and sunset, they are all considered to be Nitya Karma or the eternal duties of the Brahmanas. If these activities are obligatory for the Brahmanas, why is Vaishnav behavior opposed to them? So this question was asked to all the Vaishnavas over there, and all the Vaishnavas over there, they requested the Paramhans Babaji to reply to these questions. But Paramhans Babaji then pointed out towards Vaishnav Das, and he had full faith in him that he was very much learned and he would reply to this question. So Vaishnav Das, when his name was taken, he was very much pleased, and he started thinking of Chaitanya Prabhuji, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he took blessings from him so that the true reply could come out of him, and which was acceptable to all the Vaishnavas. So with the blessings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vaishnav Das started replying to it. The whole chapter is about a reply to this question. Okay. He starts with the explanations of Shri Krishna Chaitanya being the source of all the inspirations, and he being a god by himself. And after that, he moves on that may he worship him, that may he enlighten me so that I can speak something in worthy of reply to this question. Vaishnav Das started with the distinction between Vedi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. Vedi Bhakti, as we all know, is necessary because we are covered with Maya. And we need rules and regulations as depicted in the Shastras. So these rules and regulations, they help us in going to the direction what we should be following in pursuit of Krishna Bhakti. So that is Vedi Bhakti, which is as per the rules and regulations of the Shastras, Vedi Bhakti. When, with the mercy of the sadhus and the association of the devotees and satsangs and kirtans, when Maya is overcome to some degrees, then there is no need for these rules and regulations of the Shastras. The bhakti comes spontaneously. That is Raganuga Bhakti. So when Maya is covering us, when we are in the influence of Maya, we need Vedi Bhakti. But when we overcome Maya with the help of the sadhus and the gurus, then Raganuga Bhakti comes, and this Vedi Bhakti is not required. So this is what Vaishnav Das says. And he says further about I and mine, that I am this body. Everything belonging to this body is mine. And then he starts liking people who are fulfilling the requirements of his body. He develops friends and he develops enemies. And then he displays love and affection for the people who ever support the satisfaction of his body, of his desires. And therefore there is hatred and happiness. Then he displays love and hatred in three ways. And the first one is the Saririk, and the second one is the Samajik, and the third one is the Natik. Saririk love and affection is the one which is pleasing to his body, and samajik hatred and love and affection is what is associated with the society. And lastly, the natik love and affection is what is as per the ethics and the morality, morals. So three types of love and hatred are displayed: the saririk, the samajik, and the natik. And this way, the person is engaged in struggle for material existence. He's all the time struggling and struggling and struggling so that he can fulfill his desires. He is entangled in material world. Then Vaishnav Das further talks about the false attachment to the material world. And gaining in this manner, we only gain birth and death, because we are all the time running after material things. And this is called, he says, sansar. And this is all temporary happiness and temporary distress. There will be distress also, there will be happiness also, but these are all temporary things. These are not eternal things. The eternal thing is the Nitya Dharma, which is the transcendental love for Krishna Bhagwanji, unalloyed, without any offenses. That is where we have to reach, the Nitya Dharma. And when person is so much engrossed in the sansar, in the world, in the material things, he feels very miserable. He is not in a happy state of affairs. There is no peace for him. But Bhagwanji is very merciful. He sends sadhus to the rescue of that person who's making efforts. Though he is engrossed in the material things, but he is making efforts towards Krishna Bhagwanji. So he sends sadhus and gurus to rescue that person. So Bhagwanji then builds up the rules and regulations, which is called the Vidhi Mark. And therefore he makes this Vedi Bhakti available to him under the guidance of gurus and sadhus. And then the requirement came for the development of the Shastras. Under the guidance and help of the Aryans and the Rishis of that time, the Shastras were developed. And the Shastras teaches us three things: the Karmarg, the Karma path, the Gyan path, and the Bhakti path. So all these things are there in the Shastras. And again, with the guidance of gurus, we are able to understand them. There are three different types of jivas, says Vaishnav Das, and there are three different adhikars or eligibilities for them. And these three adhikars are the karam adhikar, which leads to the material gain. Then there is Gyan Adhikar, leading to liberation. And then there is Prem Adhikar, leading to love for God. This is known as Veda Dharma, leading to Vedi Pravarti, religious codes of Shastra. So, religious codes of Shastras are developed because of three eligibilities or adhikars: Karm, Gyan, and Prem. Prem is Bhakti also. And opposite to this is Avadha Bhakti. People who are opposite to Shastras, people who are opposite to Shastras regulations, they are called the Avadha. They are engaged in sinful activities and are known as Malechas, people belonging to uncivilized non-Aryan race. Going further, Vaishnav Das talks about Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita, as we know, consists of 18 chapters. The first 6 chapters are about Karma Yoga. The next 6 chapters are about Bhakti Yoga. And the last 6 chapters are about Gyan Yoga. Bhagwan Ji can be reached through any of these attributes. He can be reached through Karma Yoga also. He can be reached through Gyan Yoga also. He can be reached through Bhakti Yoga also. But it is made very clear in Bhagavad Gita that Bhakti Yoga is the easiest and the simplest method to achieve Krishna Bhagwan Ji in this Kali Yuga. Both Karma Yoga and Gyan Yoga are very lengthy processes, very difficult to understand. And so, if Karma and Gyan do not lead to Bhakti, then both Karma and Gyan are of no use. It will not benefit the devotee, the sadhak. So bhakti is the supreme of all the three karma. So always remember that bhakti yoga is the supreme one, and this is what we have to follow in this Kali Yuga. So this is what Vaishnav Das teaches us, and then going further, he says there are 2 types of karma, Shuddh and Ashubh. He talks about Vikarma, he talks about Akarma. Both Vikarma and Akarma are bad, whereas Shubh Karma is good. Then there are 3 types of Shubh Karmas, Nitya Karma, Namitta Karma, Kamya Karma. And this is mentioned along with the understanding of Varna Ashram. Vaishnav Das gives in detail about Varna Ashram. Varna Ashram, as we know, there are 4 types of Varnas. The Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishya, and the Shudras. Different types of people in the society. And the age or the time in which they are, that is called Brahmacharya, period of life, then Grasth period of life, and then Vanprasth period of life, and lastly, the Sannyas period of life. So one has to live the life as per the Shastra, as per the Varnashram, as depicted in our Shastras. Vaishnava says that a country which follows this Varna ashram is considered to be pious, and the degree of their piety depends upon the degree to which they have adopted Varna ashram in their country. So it's very necessary to follow the Varna ashram, and of course, under the guidance of a guru. Okay, going further, we have to understand a few things which we have not gone in detail, and I will read them out for you. And this is given in the pure spiritual jiva's relationship. And I will mention about that thing. The pure spiritual jiva's relationship with the material world is completely terminated only when Krishna wills it. Whenever Krishna Bhagwanji wants it, only then the relationship with the material world, it vanishes. Until this time, till it is not vanished, the association with the material world, The jiva's relationship with the material world can only tend toward its eventual cessation, or what is called shonmukha. In the shonmukha stage, the jiva's intelligence attains freedom from matter to the extent of swarupata jal mukti, swarupta jad mukti, but not to the extent of vastuta jad mukti. I will go in detail about understanding this shonmukha uh, state of affairs, and then also Swarupta Jad Mukti and Vastuta Jad Mukti. We had jumped to other sections of the reply, but it is very essential that we should not escape the understanding these the three terms. So I will try to speak out about this thing. Shonmukha. What is Shonmukha state of affairs? This is the a state when we are not fully in the association with Krishna Bhagwan Ji, purely in the Nitya Dharma. We are in the line of reaching over there. So that is Shonmukha. It is in the process of doing away completely with the material world. Yeah. So Shonmukha means the decline or diminution of any object or thing, the stage in which a jiva's relationship with the material world gradually diminishes due to engagement in spiritual practice. It is not fully diminished, it is in the process of diminishing due to engagement in spiritual practice. The spiritual practice or the efforts are going on, but complete distancing from the material world is not there. So that process or stage is called Shonmukha. So Bhagwanji's, whenever Bhagwanji wills or he wishes, then only the complete termination of from the material world will take place. Until that time, it is the state of Shonmukha, where efforts are being made and we are going towards diminishing of this attachment to the material world, and because we are engaged in spiritual practice, and that is called Shonmukha. In this Shonmukha stage, the jiva's intelligence attains the freedom from the matter to the extent of Swaruptaha Jada Mukti. Now let's understand what is Swaruptaha Jada Mukti, and give me a little time, please. I'll just take out the definition of Swarupta Jada Mukti. These definitions are very essential, and because this will help us to understand our progress towards Nitya Dharma, what we are supposed to do in the Nitya Dharma, and also understanding what is Namikta Dharma. So this terminology will help us. Yeah. Swarupa Sakti. Shri Bhagwan's divine potency. It is called Swarupa Sakti because it is situated in his form. The potency is Chinmay, fully conscious, and thus it is the counterpart and antithesis of matter. Consequently, it is also known as Chit Sakti, potency which embodies the principle of consciousness. Because this potency is intimately connected with the Lord, being situated in this form, it is further known as Antaranga Sakti, the internal potency, because it is superior to his marginal and external potencies, both in form of glory. It is known as Parasakti, the superior potency. Thus, by its qualities, the potency is known by different names: Swarup Shakti, Chit Shakti, Antaranga Shakti, and Par Shakti. So, this is what we have to understand: Swarup Jad Mukti. So, we only reach the Swarup Jad Mukti by understanding the internal potencies of Bhagwan Ji. But we are not there to the level of Vastuta Jad Mukti. So Vastuta Jad Mukti, let's understand what is Vastuta Jad Mukti. Vastuta Jad Mukti, it is liberated in terms of one's constitutional makeup as a Vastu or conscious living entity. Its permanent release from the encasement of the gross and subtle bodies which cover the Atma and facilitate the jiva's interaction with the material energy. Its complete freedom from all contact with the matter and the material world. This refers to Vastu Siddhi. This is where we have to ultimately reach Vastuta Jad Siddhi, complete eradication from the material world. So, to repeat, the complete pure spiritual jiva's relationship with the material world is completely terminated only when Krishna wills, whenever he wishes. Until this time, the jiva's relationship with the material world can only tend towards eventual cessation, that is, Shonmukha. In the Shonmukha stage, the jiva's intelligence attains freedom from the matter to the extent of Sarupta Jadmukti, but not to the extent of Vastuta Jad Mukti. When one attains the stage of Vastuta Jad Mukti, the Ragitma Vritti or mood of the Ragitmakas is awakened in the pure Jiva both in terms of his internal spiritual identity and constitutional state, that is Vastu. This Ragatmika Prakriti is the nature of the eternal residence of Vraj. The Jeev in the Shonmukha stage follows in the wake of the Ragatmaga nature is known as Raganuga, one who follows the way of Raga. This condition of Raganuga should be ardently sought after by the Jivas. As long as this condition is absent, human intelligence remains spontaneously attached to the mundane objects, to the material objects. Due to one's nisarg, the false acquired nature, the bewildered jiva mistakenly considers the attachment for mundane objects to be his natural spiritual attachment. At that time, one's natural pure attachment to spiritual object is not present, and then becomes miseries and miseries. When one's natural pure attachment to spiritual objects or spirituality or to Shri Krishna Bhagwan Ji is not present, it will only lead to misery. So this is the takeaway from this section of the Vaishnav Das reply. Going further, Bhagwan Ji, Vaishnav Das talks about beautifully some more replies. So we have understood the Bhagavad Gita part, the karma parts, the pap, the vikarma, the karma, and we have also understood the three types of shubh karma, the nitya karma, the namikta karma, or uh, kamya karma, and we have also understood about varnashram, and actually we will understand now more about this aspect a little bit more. So let me go to this part also, elaborate. It needs a little bit more understanding So I will not deviate from what Vaishnav Das has to say. So he says, actually, the only true Nitya Karma for the Jiva is Krishna Prem. This true Nitya Karma is referred to as unalloyed spiritual cultivation or activities directed towards reinstating one's pure transcendental consciousness. The physical activities, further Vaishnav says, the physical activities that one will naturally have to adopt to attain this chid anusilina are assistants to nitya karma. So there is no fault in referring to them as nitya karma. From the absolute perspective, though it would be better to refer to such activities as namikta rather than nitya. The divisions of karma into nitya and namikta are only from a relative viewpoint and not from the absolute spiritual perspective. From the point of view of the essential nature of things, the nitya dharma of the jiva is unalloyed spiritual practice, and all other types of dharma are namikta. This applies to varnashram dharma, and it also applies to ashtanga yoga, the eightfold yoga system. It also applies to sankhya gyan, or the path of knowledge involving analytical research into the nature of spirit and matter, and lastly to tapasya also. So these are all part of the namikta dharma, but they are very essential to reach the ultimate nitya dharma. These are means to the end, and the end is nitya dharma, and which is the unalloyed spiritual practice. These all namikta dharma, they are the jivas and are called namikta because the jiva would not need this dharma if he were not bound, if he were not bound by the material things. The conditioned state of being bewildered by Maya is itself a circumstantial cause, and the function of the duty that is prompted by a circumstantial cause is known as Namekta Dharma. Therefore, from the absolute spiritual perspective, they are all Namekta Dharma. And in due course of time, we will come to know that all this Namekta Dharma is to be relinquished. We are heading towards that. Our understanding for Nitya Dharma and Namikta Dharma is increasing, and finally we will reach towards the title of the chapter that Namikta Dharma is to be relinquished and Nitya Dharma is to be followed, because Nitya Dharma is eternal. It is the unalloyed services to Krishna Bhagwanji. Further, Vaishnava says, Namikta Dharma includes the superiority of the Brahmanas, their Sandhya Vandana, and their acceptance of sannyas after renunciation of all karma. All these activities are highly recommended in the Dharma Shastra, and they are beneficial in consideration of appropriate eligibility. But still, they have no standing in relation to Nitya Karma. Very important. All the Namikta Karma have no standing in relation to the Nitya Karma. Going further, Vaishnava says, and he quotes Srimad Bhagavatam, the shlok number 7.9.10. The Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned, in my estimation, a bhakta who has taken birth in a family of dog eaters, but who has dedicated his mind, words, activities, and wealth to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, is superior to the Brahmana endowed with all 12 Brahmanical qualities, but who is diverted from the lotus feet of Sri Bhagwanji. Such a bhakta, although of lowly birth, can purify himself and his entire family, whereas the Brahmana, who is filled with pride, cannot even purify himself. The Vaishnav Das further talks about the 12 qualities of the Brahmanas. They are truthfulness, control of the senses, austerity, freedom from malice, modesty, tolerance, freedom from envy, sacrifice, charity, fortitude, studying the Vedas, and accepting vows. Brahmanas endowed with these 12 qualities are certainly worthy of honor in this world. However, if a Chindal or a dog eater is a Bhakta, he is worshipping Krishna Bhagwanji, he is superior to Brahmanas who possess these qualities, who has these qualities, but he is only posing that I know everything, but he does not have Krishna Bhakti. Such a person is inferior to the Chandal, even though his birth was in a low family. The purport is that a person who was born a Chandal but who has been purified by the sanskar achieved through sadhu sangha and who is now engaged in the jiva's nitya dharma of pure spiritual cultivation is superior to a brahmana who is established in namikta dharma but who abstains from the nitya dharma of unalloyed spiritual practice, a very important section of Vaishnav Das reply. Who is a true Brahmana? It is not by birth, it is by what he does towards the unalloyed spiritual practice. Then further, Vaishnav Das talks about two types of human beings, and they are the Shubh uh, karma people and the Ashubh karma people. And we have already talked about Vikarma, bad things as compared to what is mentioned in the Shastras. A karma, whatever is mentioned, a person knows that these are good things, but he does not do those things. They are the karmas. So both Vikarma and Akarma are bad, whereas Shubh karma or worshipping Krishna Bhagwanji, that is good. Okay, then there are two kinds of human beings in this world, those who are spiritually awake and those who are spiritually unconscious. Vaishnavas are spiritually awake and receive Shastras as a friend. So here he is glorifying Vaishnavas that they are the people who are awake as opposed to people who are spiritually unconsciousness. Okay, now let's read a little bit more about this part, and it will enlarge us and glorify us more about this topic of Nitya and Namikta Dharma, and we will take it further. It says, those who are spiritually unconscious are obliged to remain confined to a particular portion of the stark and rudimentary injunctions of Shastra, whereas those who are spiritually awake receive the underlying essence of Shastra as an intimate friend. They consider Shastras as a very intimate friend. All those people who are spiritually awake. These two groups of people perform different activities, but their aim is the same. Ineligible people may think that the behavior of those who are spiritually awake is opposed to the behavior of people in general. But in reality, the fundamental aim of these different patterns of behavior is the same, and that is to achieve Krishna Bhagwanji. From the point of view of these and those people who are spiritually awake, people in general are eligible for instructions regarding Namikta Dharma. However, Namikta Dharma is in essence incomplete. It is adulterated. It is impermanent. And very important, it is fit to be rejected. So very clearly, Vaishnav Das has mentioned that Namikta Dharma is fit to be rejected, and that is coming nearer to the title of this chapter, and which is that Namikta Dharma is to be relinquished. Namikta Dharma, Vaishnav Das says, is not direct spiritual practice. Rather, it consists of temporary material activities that are taken up to attain pure spiritual practices. Hence, it is merely the means to an end. The means is never complete because its function ceases when it has produced the end. Therefore, it is simply a phase in the achievement of the final goal. Consequently, Namikta Dharma is never complete. It is never sampurna. So coming back to it, that it is to be rejected. It is to be relinquished. For example, a Brahmana's chanting of Sandhya Vandana, like his various other duties, is temporary and subject to specific rules and regulations. It is not spontaneous. He is following rules and regulations of how to do it. It is a part of his daily duty. These activities do not stem from his natural spiritual uh, uh, royal, what you call spiritual practice. These activities are not natural. If after performing these prescribed duties for a long time, he, however, obtains the association of sadhus and bhaktas, one develops a taste for Harinam. At that time, Sandhya Vandana no longer remains a temporary prescribed duty which is directed toward material rewards. Harinam is complete spiritual practice by itself. Always note, please, Harinam is complete spiritual practice by itself. Whereas Sandhya Vandana and other such practices are only the means to obtain this principal goal and can never be the complete reality. Namikta Dharma is commendable because it aims at the truth, but it is eventually meant to be abundant and it is mixed with undesirable results. Only spiritual reality is truly beneficial. Although the jiva should relinquish matter and its association, materialism is prominent in Namikta Dharma. Moreover, Namikta Dharma produces such an abundance of irrelevant results that the jiva cannot help but get entangled in them. Namikta Dharma will always entangle into irrelevant things. Please note this thing as mentioned by Vaishnav Das, very important part of it. Further, Vaishnav Das, in the concluding part, he glorifies the Vaishnavas. He mentions, one may ask, what is Vaishnav Dharma? The answer is that Vaishnav Dharma is the Jiva's Nitya Dharma. When the Vaishnav, the Jiva, is liberated from the matter, he nurtures Krishna Prem in his pure spiritual form. Before that stage, when the Vaishnava is still materially bound, although spiritually awakened, he only accepts objects and association that are favorable for the spiritual practice, and he rejects all that is unfavorable. Thus, he never adheres blindly to the rules and prohibitions of the Shastras. He accepts the instructions and prohibitions of the Shastras very graciously, but only when they are favorable to his practice of Hari Bhajan. When they are unfavorable, he immediately rejects them. A Vaishnav is the world's only true friend, and he renders auspiciousness for all jivas of the world. So, with this statement, Vaishnav Das concludes very humbly his submission and reply to the question of the gentleman. And that gentleman was very much pleased with the answer, and he learned quite a lot about the Vaishnavas and the enjoyment he got from the satsang. And he offered his Danvat Pranam to Vaishnav Das and all the Vaishnavas present over there. And with this, the association on that particular day came to an end. And the gentleman, he went back to his residence in the Godurma. And the Brahmana, the singer, his name was Kalidas Lahiri. So Kalidas Lahiri then went back to his residence, and the place where he resided, it was owned by a Babaji named Madhav Das Babaji. Madhav Das Babaji was the owner of the place where singer Brahman Kalidas Lahiri was living. On that particular day in the night, Kalidas Lahiri saw this Madhav Das Babaji in association with a woman, and he was taken aback because Madhav Das Babaji had taken sannyas, the last stage of the social order. Okay. And that woman turned out to be the wife of Madhav Das Babaji. So it is a practice that once you take up sannyas, you should never go back to a woman, even if it is a wife. So Kalidas Lahiri did not like it because Madhav Das Babaji had fallen down. So next day he went to his Guruji and asked permission to be allowed to live with Vaishnav Das. And Paramans Babaji gave that permission, and he started living with Vaishnav Das, and he accepted Vaishnav Das as his guru, and that is the end of the chapter number 3 of Jaiv Dharam. I hope there was some enlightenment. Please forgive me for my limited knowledge and the way I may have made a lot of mistakes in summarizing this chapter. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.